I missed the fade that time. I didn't click on the right button. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show tonight. I'm working on sending out the social pings right now, pinging everybody on the Discord to start the little amusing responses that happen whenever that happens. But yeah, we are live tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Social's out on Twitter. The social is out on Discord, so appreciate anyone who can go and share that for us now. That would be fantastic. Setting the phone down here in case actually I can do it a little bit different tonight. My kid's out of town with his grandparents, so I usually have my phone here so in case anything emergencies happen, but I don't have to worry as much about that tonight with everyone. So thanks for joining us, guys. As you can see, got a special treat for everyone with our show. This is the big double game week. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time for the YouTube live show, I know that we still do get some new members coming in, getting close to 600 subscribers. So that's pretty awesome for the little niche community that I know that we have. But we do go live pretty much every Monday during the MLS regular season. I say pretty much because every now and then something strange will happen where maybe we have to cancel. I thought that might have happened tonight, but I'll get into that in a second. But we pretty much try to go live, especially during the big DGW times when we know we have Wednesday games, to give you all the first hit of what we think, what is going on in our heads, the little gray cells, how they're firing. So thanks everyone who is subscribing. And if it's your first time, please do subscribe, hit the bell notification. All of it helps to get out the information and to help grow our fantasy community. So welcome everyone. Let's see here. Very much interested you guys in chat. Please feel free to send in some thoughts. This is going to be a good one for us to just kind of go through our process. But I think everyone's here right now. What's going on, Gene? What's going on, Eric? Hey, Black and Red. We are going to get started right now. Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our review of round 18 and preview of round 19's massive DGW. Actually, I think I messed it up, didn't I? I got it. I'm one ahead. Round 17. This is easy to redo. 17 and 18. Cut. Do it again. Clerical error. My bad. And also,
recording in progress.
oh my God, Ashley would have killed me. She would have killed me. Okay. Good job. It's in red. It's like it's not in giant red bold on the rundown to hit the damn record button. So, all right. Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our review of round 17 and preview of round 18's massive double game week. This episode is brought to you by, does California really need a fourth team when the other two are basically not performing? Never mind. No. Actually, brought to you by our amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this podcast and project going as long as we have. If you're interested in learning more about our Patreon community, head over to patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reed Conley from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight my partners in fantasy are both MIA. Yes, Blaine was doing massive work with his family this week, cleaning out some storage rooms and stuff like that, and so he is unavailable due to exhaustion and needing to just decompress. And Ashley, unfortunately, after being out last week with a girlfriend, having some good fun when she came in to visit, caught some sickness from her kid, which I totally understand, and so she is also sidelined tonight on the disabled list. So I'd like to, though, welcome a very special guest that we have joining in, filling in. We have Matt Wojo from MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, but also the number 2 overall ranked player in the MLS fantasy game, joining us tonight to talk fantasy ahead of this double game week round. Matt, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Super excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
And I just want to say, before we get too deep into this, I know in the intro I said, like, when the other 2 California teams, I know there are 3, but San Jose's doing well, and the 2 LA teams are just not doing well. So that was what that was. So before I get ats about, you said the other 2, I know they're 3. I know they're 3. I said 4. Don't come at me. It's okay. But yes, so excited to have Matt here to kind of chat with fantasy. Before we get started, also, I want to give one quick plug right now that this is, and I'll mention this again, this is the final round of the third quarter qualifier for the MLS Fantasy Champions League with the official fantasy game. So this is your final round to solidify your top 50 spot during this group. If you go to your league section, you should see it as a third round qualifier. Top 50 players will be entered into the Fantasy Champions League. The next quarter qualifier starts with round 19, and then we'll have a few weeks after that, and then the last final few weeks will be to decide the champions of the champions. So that may play into your choices for this round, but just want to make a call out to that right now. Now, before we get into our expectations and reality, though, just a quick little recap of what did and didn't work. If you're in chat right now, go ahead and let me know how you did with your overall points. Would love to see that. But Matt, like I said, your number 2 player overall. No pressure. I know that we've had Christian on before who's been on top, and that ranking switches back and forth. But just what are some general tips that you can give to players right now for just what they can do to help rise up in the ranks and where they're at?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's pretty tight at the top up there. I know a lot of us have been kind of going back and forth, and I know there's a couple of guys that I could mention right now who I've noticed have been shooting up the charts. Some that have been on your show quite often. But I think you just gotta. This is gonna sound stupid, but just make smart choices. Don't try to get too cute. Don't try to get too cute with your captains. Don't try to get too cute with your matchup. There's certain fundamentals that we talk about a lot in the Discord, especially, and on your the show here, that they're kind of they're for a reason. Like there's a reason that we drill these into people as guidelines. They work, and so I think really it's just don't get too cute with your choices. I know sometimes people want to do differentials, and a differential or two when you're making your choices doesn't hurt all the time, but you just got to be careful what those differentials are and make really wise choices when it comes to that. I know that's kind of a vague read, but I think it's just if I had anything to say, it's just don't get too cute with your choices. Don't, captaining defenders or goalkeepers and things like that we joke about a lot. I wouldn't do it personally, but I'm also super conservative about the way I play. You do a certain amount of chalk and then you try to make a differential here or there. I think that's kind of the key to ways that you can gain. And if you feel super like in your gut about a matchup, like go all out with that matchup. It's not bad to double or triple up on a defense every once in a while if you're really feeling that matchup. I think those are the kind of risks that really can propel you, but they can backfire as well. So you just kind of have to take that and move on to the next week. Short memories too, right?
That's right. Fantasy giveth and fantasy taketh away. For sure. But no, that's a great point. I know a lot because of when we put out this show on Mondays, especially with these double game weeks. A lot of this is initial reactions to the past week, how we're building our team. And so lots of things can become chalky in what we're talking about, or some of the initial picks. So that's why we try to throw out other names. That's why Ranch does the differentials picks. It's not like these are the guys to look at sort of some thought processes of here's how you can broaden your mind and to select those players. And it's hard. You can't teach how to select, because if you go to our Discord community, you see people talking back and forth, and you can have great reasons. I mean, why you should captain a certain player each week, why you should or shouldn't include, who you should fade. Like there could be great reasons of why you can see, like, man, I see both sides. And I mean, I'm not saying it's a gut call, but I mean, sometimes people are right, sometimes people are wrong, and it is kind of figuring out can be an element of luck to that. There can be some elements of skill, and sometimes it's about taking those differentials and putting them on your bench so that you have the ability to respond and react to that. There is some gamesmanship to it with our switcheroos and our autoroos. That's how we can help maximize those points. So but we are excited to have you on. I am excited to have you on tonight. We, the fantasy community, should be excited to have you on tonight. It was a short round previously, so not a lot to talk about with takeaways, so I'm really looking forward to kind of going through thought processes from you and from the chat for how we're approaching this massive double game week that we have. So just starting out real quick, I was honestly not sure how this week was going to go at the beginning, because I did not go heavy with some of the LA players. At least I had them on my bench. So after the first game, I didn't have anybody from Houston. I didn't have any points really. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then I was away for Father's Day weekend, didn't really do a lot of checking, and ended up with a 108. Super happy with that. Had the heel captain, that was great. Had Mukhtar, which was, I think, essential. If you captain Mukhtar this week, which I saw you in chat, Christian, did you go with Mukhtar? I think you were talking him up maybe last week, or maybe not heel, but Mukhtar was great. Espinoza was good. I ended up kind of going with a little bit of differential with Rodriguez as my fourth defender. I ended up scrubbing not scrubbing. I ended up having a scrub midfielder, so I only ran with 4, which is not how I usually play, so that was kind of crazy. But I did that so I could have Cucho, Polito, and Vela coming off of my bench, or at least as options. I had Polito and Vela who came off and gave me 19 points total, so that was a great boost that I had right there. And then having the keeper with Daniel, with McCarty and Daniel was really great with that 0-0 draw that happened in Portland, or happened in San Jose with Portland. And I almost scrubbed out to throw in McGraw for one of my players, but I was pleased with what I had with 108 overall. Won all of my head-to-heads, overall rank 151. So I'm pleased with that for what I shoot for each year. I usually shoot for just top 200, and I cannot complain. Some of the hits and misses, I think Polito was a great bench play. I know that was some of the Sporting Kansas City was talked up, and some of the weird form that LAFC's had, and so I ended up adding him to my bench, and that was a great takeaway, even with their loss there. And then Heel did everything that we wanted from him against Orlando, and Orlando got that goal, which we were all very concerned about with the defensive losses that New England had, about not going too hard with their defense, and we saw that. So I didn't get hit with anything there, and Heel did come away with some of those great points, though it was Mukhtar who led the way with his big 18 right there. The misses, this wasn't one that I missed with this in general. LAFC has just not been doing well with all of this double game week congestion that they have, and I think that's really concerning, especially going into this week, so I look forward to talking about that, Matt, today. Then I wish I had gone with Shaq Moore over Lovitz with Nashville. That was my gut, but I ended up going with Lovitz and did not get as many points from him as I would have hoped. And also I expected a little bit more from DC. I ended up not having Pines on my bench as a switcheroo and had him on the field, and the double goals from RSL did not give some good defensive return right there, so I missed out on that. But good to see that from RSL. I did see some people talking about them as a potential differential or a bench play last week, and I think that's definitely something you want to keep in mind or keep in your back pocket going forward, because they could have some opportunities right there. Matt, anything you want to talk about from some takeaways, or just how did you do last week?
Yeah, so I ended up with a 105. So you would have beat me in a sleep. Head to
Yeah.
head. Yeah. So I really pretty much got what I thought I was going to get out of it. Basically, the only miss that I really felt like that I would have had I taken somebody that I thought that I was going to, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I scrubbed out Espinoza at 10:29, right after Vela scored that goal. Right before lock, I had my dog out in the yard, and I'm sitting there on my phone trying to scrub somebody out, and I had because I had Cucho on the bench, and I'm a 6. I'm pretty much taking the 6 just about any time, unless I just really think that player that I'm scrubbing is going to beat that. And Espinoza, it was one of these. I had to make a quick decision. And I went conservative and took the 6, and Espinosa ended up with a 9. So, it would have put me at 108, kind of where you were, Reed. But other than that, I mean, I blew the Santi pick, but I think a lot of us did. Santi Rodriguez pick.
Yeah.
My captain was Heel, and I think that's it was process. It's all about the process, and that was a good process pick. Mukhtar would have been solid too, obviously, and he did well. Had Polito, ended up Rodriguez, kind of the last a last-minute thing from San Jose, and he came through big. That helped out a lot. And McCarthy was my keeper, and I kind of just rode him, which, I mean, outside of Daniel, was pretty much the keeper pick to have, because it was just terrible for clean sheets last week, having so few games and with all the questions. So really, I'm surprised that the scores got as high as they did. I think a lot of us were were like you at the beginning of the night, going, are we even going to get any points this week? And, once Heel and Mukhtar came through, I think it made a lot of us a little more comfortable with it. And yeah, other than the last minute Espinoza scrub, which I could have gone either way at that point. And so, like I said, I went conservative and ended up 3 points short of what I could have. But so I can't complain too bad.
Yeah, it was Herrera who I took out for Sandy. So 3-point swing, so not crazy, but it is what it is. And that was a really tough. I talked about this last week. If you were making any of these switches, the San Jose game was going to give you that best opportunity, but you couldn't quite see those 8:30 games, and especially with how we kick off and how the extra time, it was not going to be perfect. So if you were making those decisions to do your switches, you had to do them without 100% of the information. It was a little bit easier for me where I had my keeperoo going with LAFC was 2 points from the first game. Didn't think it was going to be that much different from what I was going to get with a single game week keeper here. So I was willing to take that bet with Daniel, and it worked out. It worked out really well, especially since Portland had struggled some. But some of those other ones were harder to go, especially if you had Espinoza. This could have been one where you were thinking, did I want to double up on their defense or triple up on a defensive unit here? So, but it was a rough time for that. Not any better this week with this massive congestion that we have with double game weeks. But these are the two sides of the fantasy pendulum that you are seeing as players, especially if this is your first time. Very few teams playing due to massive buys because of international competitions. And on the other side, almost every team playing a double game week, even with international call-ups and missing players and absences right here. So this is peak because MLS right now, and so we're really excited to talk more about that coming up. But first, we're going to hit up our housekeeping in our next section right after this. Okay, let's see here. Strix, thanks. Yeah, I guess I adjusted some. Apparently, Matt, your levels were a little bit low, so I made some adjustments there. I think we're doing well. Great scores in the chat, guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Looking forward to everything. Like I said, we're going to be kind of going through our thought processes with this one, so feel free. We'll talk through any questions that you guys have in chat or any particular players. We'll try to touch base on all of those. And I almost forgot to load up the mega reference, which Branch would have been mad at me if I forgot to do that. There is his link. So that's what it's all about at this point now for me. It's like people are going to get mad at me if I don't do things.
I know that feeling.
So let me go ahead and get the mega reference up. Fantasy tools. Mega reference. There it is. Here we go. Okay. Hello and welcome back to our housekeeping for Round 18's massive double game week. Just abbreviated team recaps. We don't have Blaine and Ashley here to talk about our head-to-head Pro Rel League, but you guys are killing it. I hope you're enjoying this. This is super fun with the Pro Rel, so we're looking forward to bringing that back next year with the expanded leagues. But I am going to give a quick shout out to the MLS Fantasy Boss network of leagues players that we have. So our Discord head-to-head, 7 teams are tied at 15-0-2, but it is Ryan McElhenney by points right there. Don't forget that name because, again, over at the Patreon head-to-head, Ryan McElhenney is leading still with his score of 14-0-2, and Ryan is a former stats writer for MLSFantasyBoss.com, so excited to see his team doing so well right there. And then over in the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts hosts Invitational League. That is Black and Red, who is just still leaps and bounds ahead of everybody with a record of 14-0-3. And that is one of the, I'm going to say it, one of the most competitive leagues in all of fantasy. I'm going to go out on a limb right there. I mean, it's a league that, like I said, it's invitational, have a lot of the top players. I think you're in that, aren't you, Matt, as well? You're not that one. Next year. Next year, you're getting into that one for sure. But we have some pundits who are in there. We have some previous MLS players. Usually, Ben Bear joins us. We've had Matt Wiebe in the past, but he just got tired of bringing up the wooden spoon there, and so he did not join this year. But some of the top players and names that you hear on the show are in that league, and it is tight. So tough. I mean, you could have scores of like I think I had 108 and maybe my opponent had 105 this week. So I mean, it is super tight, which you can have fantastic. But Black and Red, a seasoned player, doing so well right there. But now let's talk about round 18. The social is out, so please do share that with us if you're listening to us live. But the double game week starts on Wednesday, June 21st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it starts out with a bunch of teams. This Wednesday is just like a regular week that we've come to expect during the Apple TV era of MLS that we're in, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30 games. But be sure to pay attention to who your double game week teams are and who your single game week teams are, because that will absolutely impact how you need to set up any kind of switcheroos or auto-roos that you're going to be going for this week. There is a pinned comment in the main MLS chat at the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord with a very easy check to see who is on a double game week, because there are a bunch. I'm just going to call out some of them right now. The teams with a double home week: New York Red Bulls, Austin, Colorado, LAFC, and Portland. Teams with a double road week are New York City FC, Toronto, Nashville, Vancouver, and Chicago. So for how you feel about homes and aways, those are the teams to look there. Everyone is playing, and so I'm also going to shout out to all of the single game week teams. No one's on a bye. We have Dallas, Columbus, DC United, New England Revolution, Minnesota, and Miami. So those 6 teams right there are the only ones with a single. Everybody else is on a double game week right now. So those are some of the teams you need to be paying attention. For your switcheroo options, it's going to be tight. I don't have any names to throw out for you, Matt. Maybe you do in a second if you want to, or even right now if there's anything that you're looking at. But they're tight with double game weeks like this. Is there anyone you're targeting to help you activate some switcheroos?
For goalkeeping, so what I like to do with double game weeks like this are I look at usually the 7:30 matchups, because they're obviously easier to get the turnaround for the later 10:30 matchups. Is I look at those matchups and see which ones have like really good first games, basically for that Wednesday night matchup, and then it possibly, if I want to see what that looks like for the first game, and then I can pivot to and still get 2 games from the late game keeper if I decide to go that route. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I look at the early games. So for example, this week you could look at Guzan, you could look at Celentano, you could look at Coronel, even Bendick, who I believe Andre Blake is out this week with Gold Cup for Philadelphia. You could go cheap with Bendick, and if their first match doesn't go well, or they get hurt, or they get a red card, you can still pivot and get 2 games out of your next keeper. So that's usually how I do switcheroos or keeperoos for double game weeks like this. Is I usually just target an early matchup and just get that preview. And then if it looks like somebody I want to stick with, then I just scrub the spot and just stick with them for the second match. So that's kind of what I do. And those were some of the names that I know that's pretty much all the keepers in those 7:30 games. But like I said, it's a little easier to turn those around. You can look at the 8:30 matchups. I know Clark from Houston, their defense has been one that I know a few people are looking at, and so you could try it, but it's going to be tight. Seeing if they're going to get the clean sheet before you're looking at the 10:30 games. especially with Apple's kickoff being later than the actual game kickoff times. So I tend to look at the 7:30, and there's just so many questions, Reed. It's defenses are going to be tough. Clean sheets are going to be tough this week.
Yeah, and the way this week is set up, this round is set up with, we have a bunch of games on Wednesday and then all of the other games on Saturday. So without a Sunday game, it's really going to make your opportunities to preview a double game week's team's full 2 games worth very difficult. The best you could do is Minnesota United plays at 9:30 on Saturday. So anybody who starts their game at 7:30, you'll be able to see almost the entire game if you want to have an opportunity to preview as much of a double game week player's score before you lock into having them come off of your bench. Now, that might not be a tactic that you want to do, because that would mean you would be definitely going with a Minnesota player on the road against RSL, so you have a single game week player on your field. May not be worth it for you right there. So this may just be a round where you're going to go with the Otteroo, having a solid bench, and then just seeing who is not playing and letting them sub in automatically as you can, because that's usually those 2 shots are what's going to be best. But yeah, it's going to be tough with those switcheroos this week. Also, don't forget we have various cups and call-ups that are going on that you're going to have to be paying attention to. In general, we have information sent to me directly by our good friend Tyler Ranchinator to help us with a little bit of the injuries and suspensions and international call-ups. Some of the ones to be aware of for injuries and suspensions. We have the yellow card accumulation for Giacomakis with Atlanta. We have Navarro from Chicago, Mosquera from Cincinnati, yellow card accumulation. I think he might also be, is he out for something else too? He's got a yellow card, so he's not here. Jones from Charlotte, Abubakar from Colorado had a red. Galvin from Colorado had a red. And then we've got, let's see here, Birnbaum from DCU was out with a red. Chanot for New York City, yellow card accumulation right there. And then some of the big names to watch who are on card watch during the double game week, which of course that's important, because if they get a yellow in their first game, you will only get them as a single game week player because they will be out the second one. We have Lucho Acosta from Cincinnati, Barrial from Cincinnati. We have Diego Palacios from LAFC. We have Pablo Ruiz from RSL. We have Jackson Reagan from Seattle and Paul Murray from San Jose as well, who are on yellow card warning. And then some injuries to be aware of. We have Lowe from Philadelphia, Chicharito from LA Galaxy, ACL season ending for him. Lowe had a hamstring injury. Big ones from St. Louis, which I think will factor into some of the players we talk about in our next segment. But Klaus from St. Louis out for 4 weeks. And then Lowen is out with a quad injury for 4 to 6 weeks as well right there. And then Gene over in Miami with an ACL tear, season ending for him as well. Speaking of the call-ups, getting over to a different section, we have lots of various cups that are going on. So we have for Atlanta, Robinson, Etienne, and Fortune, who are out right there. For Chicago, for Cincinnati, we have Miazga and Vasquez. For Colorado, we have Acosta, who's out. Columbus, Morris is out. Room is out. And Molino are out. For DC, we have Jesus Ferreira. For, let's see, going some of the big ones right here. LAFC, we have Long, who's out. We have Yedlin out from Miami. If you're looking at Miami, I probably won't be doing that until Messi comes, but we'll still give him a shout out right there. A lot out for Minnesota with St. Clair, Valentin, Rosales, Lawrence, and Kahn. Let's see, we're going down here to Montreal. We have Herrera out, as well as Gilliard. Nashville, we have Godoy out, and Schaffelberg. New England still has no access to Jones. Sands out for New York City FC. For Red Bulls, we have Tolkien and Berkey out. Philadelphia, we have Blake out and Lowe due to injury. Portland, McGraw is out, a very popular name that we've talked about before due to his massive bonus point generation right there for Portland. Nobody else is even close in Portland with the McGraw. It's crazy. Rubin out for RSL. Cowell out for San Jose Earthquakes, and we've talked about his impact before on Espinoza. Seattle, we have Christian Roldan and Morris out. And then over in Toronto, Sean Johnson, Larea, Osorio, Romero, and Picolet, who are out. And then finally for Vancouver, Gressel, we have Ahmed and Brown, who are out as well. There are also going to be a lot of call-ups by the country. That's why most of these players are missing for CONCACAF. You can find out, of course, you can go to CONCACAF's page and find out, but you can also head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord and check out the mega reference, which is pinned in the Fantasy Tools section there to get this list. I know I just went through a whole bunch of names. That is the easiest way to do it because CONCACAF, CONMEBOL, UEFA, we have a few names out. Lots of call-ups right now for the various tournaments going on, as well as youth tournaments for U20s and U19s. There are players out there. So head over for sure this week. It is very important to check out the mega reference over there at the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. The easiest way to get access to that is through MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. Click on the link. It's free, it's fun, it's easy, and it's an absolute fantastic community for you to be involved with, where you can meet players like Matt Wojo right here, who can answer any questions if they happen to be in general chat, or just seeing some good people like that in the chat every day that you're there. So I'm pretty sure that, I don't think Ranch is in the chat right now, but I'm sure he would have enjoyed thinking that I might have stumbled over some of those names. I think I did pretty well, if I do say so myself. No one in chat is saying anything to me, and of course I kicked off very well without having to say Matt's actual last name. He was very kind to me. So yeah, a big thing right there. So yeah, anybody that I missed, Matt, that you think is worth pointing out, or is everything else pretty much there?
It's just a lot of names. There's just a lot of names. I'm sure as we go through some of these positions, we'll encounter more.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we missed somebody as we were building our first teams, being like, oh wait, that one wasn't added yet. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, this is definitely going to be around for everyone. We'll need to check the lineups if you can, as they're coming out, and have some backup names ready, because it's going to be a big one. But we're going to touch on those names of players that you want to have on your short list, at least for your first drafts of your teams, coming up next in our player pick section. How'd I do, chat? See how they did. I think I did pretty well with all those names right there, if I do say so myself.
I didn't hear anything that stood out.
Let's see here. Yeah, lots of people away.
It's crazy. It's like every time you look at it, you're like, oh man, I like that matchup.
Right.
And then boom, you're like, oh, I don't like it with two of the central defenders out.
Right, half that team's gone. We'll forget that right there. Do not want. I'm just gonna shrink that because I keep clicking on it on accident. Click, click, click. Good game, Reed. Thank you, Black and Red. I think I did well. I started out strong with Giacomakis, so ever since Tyler explained that to us, I think it's been going well. Let's see here. Okay, let's get that right up. Here we go. Drink. My kid got a little play food set for my parents this weekend, and so he's been making like fake hamburgers all week, and so I was just like craving cookout. I don't know if anybody has that wherever that goes to, but I was just like craving a smash burger, and I had to have one. So got that. That's the stealth sponsor this episode, Cookout, I guess.
Keep pushing them.
Hello and welcome back. We're going to be talking about our player picks coming up for round 18 of the MLS Fantasy season. Again, to mention, if you missed it at the top of the show, this is the final round of the third quarter qualifier of the MLS Fantasy Champions League for this week. So just be sure to check your teams. It's the top 50 players from this qualifier 3 that are going to make it into the Fantasy Champions League. The next one, qualifier 4, is weeks 19 or rounds 19 through 24. Then after that will be the playoff for the Champions League teams for additional prizes that MLS will give out right there. So good luck to anyone who is right there on the bubble for that. And of course, good luck to anyone for your final chance to get into the Fantasy Champions League. All right, so we're here to talk about the players that we're first thinking of right now off the top of our head for this massive double game week. And it is a doozy, Matt. I know we've already had some conversations in between segments and at the beginning. So I'm interested in also your thought process for how you're approaching each of these positions in addition to the players that you end up settling on. So let's start out. Who do you like at keepers and defenders?
I don't like any of the keepers. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's no. Well, so the thing is, like, there's several matchups that are really intriguing. Obviously, Philadelphia has what appears on paper to be a great matchup. Cincinnati's matchup looks really good. New York Red Bulls matchup looks solid. But then you look into, okay, who's gone? Then you start diving into who's gone, and so Celentano was one of the first ones that came into my head. But then you have Miazga and Mosquera are both gone, right? And so then I was like, well, what about Philly? They've got solid defense usually. Blake is supposed to be gone, right? And so I think, and so anybody in chat, please correct me if I've missed or assumed that some of these people are gone. But from what I understand, these are people that won't be there. And so you're dealing with Bendik in Philly as your keeper, and so it's just Guzan. If you want to go cheap with Guzan because he's playing NYCFC first, and they just can't score for anything right now. But Miles Robinson's gone, and I don't know if Abram's going to be there or not to partner with Parada in the back as a center back, and so there's just pieces missing constantly from everywhere, and so for me, I think for some reason, then I looked at Coronel from New York Red Bull,
yeah.
But Andre Reyes got a red card, I believe, last time, and I think he is out.
And Tolkien's out.
You got you have Tolkien and Reyes out, and Reyes is a big BP generator there, and so there's just pieces missing everywhere. So I don't know that there's one that just really comes to mind for me. And like I said, I like to do the 7:30 ones because it's easier to get a good preview of their matchup and how they're going to do, and then you can make a more educated judgment on if you want to go ahead and pivot to another double game late keeper, or if you want to just see that one out. And so I think I'm just going to look at lineups. I'll be honest with you. I'm leaning maybe Bendik, since he's got most of his defense there, and they've been playing pretty solid in the back for Philly, especially if we can talk about this later, but if Gazdag doesn't make it back, he's usually the third Philly player that a lot of people will take, and so that'll leave one open if he's not going to make that Wednesday matchup. But I'm probably just going to look at lineups. I mean, Guzan's a possibility. Like I said earlier, Clark from Houston. I mean, those are some derbies with Austin and Dallas, and so but their defense is playing so good, and I think they've got most of their defense there in Houston, so that might be a good possibility. Those are just my thoughts on keeper. The late keepers, you're looking at maybe McCarthy. He's got a couple of home games. Could be a good one. Ivicic from Portland. Normally I don't like Portland keepers, but they're playing solid lately, and they have a couple of home games that are nice. So even without McGraw, they might be a good late game pick. A lot of people are on Colorado. Colorado's not good. They're just not good, so I don't know if I trust them. So I know that's not really anything in stone there, Reed, but just a lot of question marks. Hard this week.
No, I get it. I told you that was one of the conversations we had at the beginning was like, I hate goalkeepers this week. And it is because so many, they get impacted by the defense being gone and the keeper themselves being gone and some of the midfield being gone with the increased pressure. So for me right now, the way I'm leaning is you. I want to see the early game. During the last double game week with Atlanta, I was surprised by Guzan. So I know that they're missing Robinson, but I do know that LAFC has struggled. Not LAFC, sorry. New York City FC has struggled, and they're on the road right now. They're going to be on the road again in Portland. So they've got a little bit of travel this week, and they're going to have to be factoring into how they're playing and possible rotation. So I'm willing to take a roll right there. Going down the list of other 7:30 teams, because I like going with the 7:30 team player this week. Cincinnati, I'm real worried due to the absences with Mosquera and Miazga right there, and so they're going home to Toronto. So it could work for them, but I'm just concerned about some of the absences right there. Montreal and Nashville, we know that Nashville's not been fantastic on the road, but Mukhtar's coming off of a fantastic game last week, so there's going to be a lot of form and spirit right there. And Montreal can score, so I would not be surprised if something happened there, even if it was just one goal for them. But it is at home. You already mentioned Red Bulls. I also thought about Coronel, and Charlotte does get some stuff going every now and then, so I do have some worries there. And then just so many people missing with Orlando and Philly just make me really wonder about that one. So if I'm looking at that 7:30 game, I'm willing to throw the dice with Guzan because it is one of the earlier ones, and I can just see what it is. He's not too expensive either if you're still kind of looking at some of your budget right there. The second game, I'm not 100% on yet. So with that 7:30, it's easy to look at the 10:30 teams, absolutely. And again, you could do the 9:30 Colorado. I've seen a lot of people talk about Colorado as well, and I think maybe that's some of who's missing for Vancouver or what's going on. I don't think Colorado's won at home yet. I don't know if that's just draws or just straight up wins, but they've been struggling, and they are missing Abu Bakar, and so I wouldn't. If you did anything with Colorado, it would have to be a bench play for me 100%, but I am not currently looking at Colorado. I would be more tempted by a super dark horse Sporting Kansas City road keeper than I would going with Colorado. But I'm looking at Portland as one of my teams because I know Chicago is missing some players as well, and I've just not been satisfied with what I've been getting from LAFC over the past few rounds, and there's always the potential of a keeper rotation with them that we all talk about. So I'm looking right now at Atlanta and Portland. Houston's also a very interesting option for me as well. It makes it tough to do if you wanted to do anyone. If you had Guzan to go into Houston, or if you had Houston and Portland, just those times don't line up very well, so you'd have to make a decision before the game's absolutely over. But those are probably the top three that I'm looking at. But you said it so well. This one's just crazy, and you're going to want a double game week keeper. I mean, I know we talk about. I mean, you could look. Crew's going to have a backup keeper. We know that there are other teams. I mean, New England is playing Toronto on their second game, so they could have a better defensive performance there. But you're just going to have a better chance at a game, even if your keeper gets 4 points in both of the games, just from getting a couple getting a couple of bonus points right there. Gets 4 points. You double that up, you have 8. That could be more than a single game week keeper does right there. So it's just going to be a better return to go to double game week keeper. And right now I have it on Guzan and Bingham to go for that potential keeper route right there.
And Reed, what do you think about Seattle? I know they're supposed to be missing the Roll-Dons this week, but LAFC has not really been scoring a ton. They did against Kansas City this week, but so they have the away game at LAFC, and then they have a home game to Orlando. I'd be curious. I wish Ashley was here because I'd be curious to ask.
Did they have her mention it?
I'd be curious to hear any of our many Sounder followers and their thoughts on Seattle's matchups this week, because they're not terrible. And if they have their center backs, which I'm not sure if they do. I know they have Reagan, but I don't know if Yamar is going to be there or not. But if they still have their center backs, might still be in a good place to have a strong D.
The only thing for me is Seattle is I know that they are still missing players during this round. I mean, Morris and Roldan have been called up to the go. Both of the Roldans have been called up for Gold Cup. Arriaga is out for Ecuador. He might be back for this round, but you just got to check and see right there what's going on there for them. Rusnak's on yellow card warning. Reagan's on yellow card warning right there. And so, I mean, I think I'm not sure if Ladero featured in the last time either. There's just a lot of questions for me with Seattle, and again, I've just not been super confident in the performances happening for LAFC, and they themselves are missing. I mean, Palacios is on a yellow card warning, and then they also have players who are are missing for call-ups as well with long out and play. So it's that's why I'm hesitant to go with LAFC, is just because of the recent performances that we've been getting have been shaky. But I definitely understand. This is, again, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, I can understand both conversations. Seattle is missing people, and so if it's a week in Seattle, I will definitely have Ashley post something on Twitter with her thoughts on Seattle versus LAFC this round, because I get it. I totally get why you might want to go with that, but for me, it's probably a third or fourth option for me, just because I've just lost confidence in what I've been seeing with LAFC. For defense, a lot of the same line of thinking that you are. Definitely want Wagner right there. Barrial is on my team, but he's on the bench because I am concerned about possible yellow card right there. Rodriguez. Those were three people right off the top of like these three guys I absolutely want in my team. I understand going with Lennon. If you are going with Colorado, again, absolutely someone who's on the bench. Wilson has been their highest scoring player, produces a bit more bonus points, but I still think it's really risky. Again, if you're going to double up someone with Portland, without McGraw, Bravo is the next highest point producer there as far as bonus points goes, because that's what I like to see from my defenders, is that they're generating those bonus points. But I mean, McGraw has 37 bonus points. So the guy has 98 points this year, and 37 of them have come from bonus points that he's generated. That is massive. Bravo is next with 19. So, I mean, it is a massive drop in what you see if you're going to go with someone like that. I think it's easier if you're looking for these defensive options. Again, check the mega reference. See who is on set plays or who gets involved in those set plays, because that's where you can see where a lot of that could be coming into play for you. I know I've seen some Austin players thrown up there. That could be an option. Very shaky in my mind for that, but I could see where you might want to go with that, because you have those two shots at them both at home. I don't know if I would go with that, but you could definitely look at some of those options there for those players. But I think we're going to see a lot of chalk teams on defense, if this makes sense. A lot of chalk teams, maybe some variation in the players, but be sure that you have some of those backups ready in case you don't see someone featuring in a lineup for what you may see right there. Let's see. Yeah, good comment there. Lennon gets all set plays if Amada doesn't play in the first game. That's it. Amada could be back, I think. But maybe he could come back this game, or maybe he's out the whole game. I have to double check him again. But if Amada's not there, go for it.
So what's funny, I'm going to shout out Black and Red, because he and I were having a conversation a little bit earlier about Almada. He's playing in Indonesia, and if he played, was it today he played? That's a long flight, and I understand Black and Red that you can sleep on flights, but if anybody who's ever had that long a flight, or even a flight just from Europe to the United States, like, you're tired, you're like, you don't sleep. Most people don't sleep well on planes, even if they're in first class. And so I want to shout out Black and Red, because he and I were having a nice little conversation about it, and we had a little fun banter, giving each other a hard time about sleeping on planes. And so it's possible he'll be in the lineup. I would be super surprised if Pineda put him in the lineup after that kind of travel. But stranger things have happened, and again, Reed, you said it at the beginning, because MLS, right? I mean, right. You just never know. You never know what's gonna show up in a lineup, and so if he's there, I mean, I don't want to jump into midfielders, but you got to decide what you want to do, and so
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just about sleep; it's about the quality. Because I mean, flights cramped. It's crazy, but. That's just a caveat. There are some players who are returning right now who could feature in round 18, at the beginning of round 18, but they may not. They may be 45-minute subs. They may be 60-minute subs. They may just come back in that second game. Amada is hugely important for this team, so it'll be interesting to see where they all line up. Next segment. So let's move on now to our midfielders. And again, Matt, want to hear your thought process. And particularly, I want you to answer the question that I almost asked a second ago. If Almada starts, is he on your team? So let's hear, who do you have?
Oh, Oh man, that's a tough one. That we also talked about that a little bit earlier. So the matchups aren't great. The NYCFC, he did pretty well. I was actually at the game in New York when he in the reverse fixture, and he ended up with like 6 bonus points out of nowhere. And so the guy just produces. Atlanta has been such a Jekyll and Hyde team, though. It's been when you think they're good, they don't do well, and then when you think they're gonna do well, they don't, and just vice versa. And so that's a hard choice. But I mean, I don't know how you don't, if he's in the lineup, how you don't go with him. I know he's expensive, and I know some people will take that risk, especially against New York Red Bull, where he did get stonewalled in that last fixture with them. And so I don't know. I'm on the fence. I really am. I can't 100% tell you. He's not in my lineup right now, if that helps. So I don't know that I would 100% go with him. I just think there's a lot of other choices. Not a lot, but there's a few other midfield choices. Because like I said, there's so many question marks with these teams. And then people, are they going to get back in time? Since we're at Monday, we don't know who's going to be back, especially from some of the European internationals that haven't gotten back yet. So, but right now I've got Espinosa. He came good. I think he's got a good chance. I've got Druisi. He goals in 2 of his last 3 since he returned from injury. I know a lot of people don't like that he's boom bust, kind of a lot of variance there, but he's looked pretty good since he came back, and he's got 2 great home matchups. So I think he's a good shot this week. Mukhtar, I know he's got 2 away, but man, that guy, the form, I don't know how you overlook that. It's just the guy can pull something out of nothing. And he's just playing so well. I don't know how you overlook it. Hector Herrera, actually has. I like his matchups a lot, and he's got such a good floor that he could still end up with 12 to 15 points just from his floor without a goal contribution. And so yeah, he's in my lineup. And then even though he's on a yellow card watch, I have Lucho Acosta. 7 goals in his last 7 appearances. Like, he's just on fire, and they're playing so well, and he's driving that team. And Reed, I'm sure you catch most of the matches, but he started out slow this season, and he's just caught fire, and his matchups they're just really good. Now, there's a decent chance I'll play him from the bench because of the yellow card issue, because I'd hate for him not to play that second game. But those are my 5 right now. I am looking at if there's a chance that Gazdag will be back. He's coming into reckoning. I'll think about him for sure. But I don't want him with 1 game, honestly. Almada, obviously, a lot of people are looking at Vander. But he's just so inconsistent. So good matchup, but I don't know. I don't know if I trust him.
Yeah, Goss liked that one as well, that he was quickly on my list, and I was like, oh, man, but he's one of those guys that may or may not be back. And Christian was in chat saying that he has a lot of questions about anyone who's playing in Euro or Africa right now with their tournaments, because that is definitely going to be some big turnaround time for them to have to deal with. So, but we will see how all that goes. I'm muting a couple of Reddit servers right now. Yeah, those are the same players that I had on my short list for who I was considering. I mean, going down through some of the other teams that you're looking at, if it's not Almada, then there's not really anybody else I'm going to target. With Atlanta and New York City's been so inconsistent, and with their 2 away games, it's just not something I want. Same thing with Toronto, there's just no one there who's really been hitting that I want to take a flyer on. I know, like, if Blaine was here, I'm sure he'd be throwing out one of his options right now. But I mean, it's for me, it's really like I want Herrera or I want Osorio. That's who I want if I'm wanting someone from Toronto when they're in form, and that's just not an option. So I'm not interested in them right there. Going to Philly and Orlando, I mean, yeah, it's guys like that I want, not for one game though. And Orlando has still been missing so many people. I just don't know. The Driussi pick that you have, go a little bit more into that, I think, everyone, because he has been one who was on fire last year. We talked about him at the beginning of the season of overperforming his average, and he's not featured a lot for many people. What is making you open to him for this round?
So, I mean, I think for one thing, Austin's playing a little bit better. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they've just been. I feel like there's some form happening there. They weren't as bad. They weren't as good as they were last season, but they weren't as bad as they were earlier this season. I think there's a middle ground that they were not hitting. He was out for a long time, which I'm sure did not help their performances. But like I said, two goals in his last 3 appearances. Getting some fitness back, I would hope. And really, I like the 2 home games. I think there could be fire. They're both derbies. There could be fireworks in both. It's a risk, though. I mean, he's a high variance player. A lot of people say boom bust, but high variance player who he could get you a 2, or he can get you a 12 or a 15 or a 20. I mean, seriously.
Absolutely.
But especially on double game weeks like this, I really like taking, especially midfielders. I like taking high ceiling guys. Some people they like to go with the floor players that'll get you two 5-point games and get you 10 points, and that's valuable. I still would take that over a single game player, but I think when you have a guy who's got 2 home games and looks like he's starting to fire a little bit, I'm willing to take that risk. For better or for worse.
Yeah,
I was
gonna say, and his price at $9 million is really budget friendly for this point in the season for a kind of player who you tend to lump him in with like that. So that, I mean, if you're talking about the names like Herrera, Espinoza, Mukhtar Gothic, those are all like 11 plus players, maybe 10 and change. But I mean, at $9 million, even with some of the budgets that we have, if you're trying to think, oh, I need to make moves to maybe bring in Almada, that's an easy budget point to work with.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing is, I mean, I know a lot of people talk about him overperforming his XG and things like that, but he's a good player. He's just a good player. I know that you can't put that in the numbers, but there's just some guys who do it, who overperform. And maybe not to the point of last year, but still, he's a good player, and he knows how to score goals, and he scores a bunch of them. So I think it's perfectly fine to, especially on a double game week like this where he's got 2 home games. I'm going to give him a shot.
Yeah, and of course we talked about how St. Louis had some injuries that they're dealing with right now, especially Lowen, and I think that's taking a hit as to what might be expected. Taylor Twellman said that they will be tested over these next couple of games, or next several weeks, actually. And so I think that's for sure, and I'm shying away from any kind of St. Louis because of that. Again, I come back to this LA Galaxy Sporting Kansas City game. I made the joke that maybe I'd go with the Sporting Kansas City keeper because of that, but maybe here at midfield is where you start maybe thinking of people even like Tommy that you might throw in there for an option in midfield. Probably going to have to be a bench, which might be difficult if you are looking at Lucho. I think that is a good spot for him. Again, on the bench, I'd agree. But LA has not been doing well. And so that could be maybe a differential pick that you could see that has some logic behind it. I mean, looking at Sporting Kansas City, he's leading the way with 90 points right there at their midfield spot. Again, $9 million, so right there in that same sort of Driussi type spot, and he's gotten 2 assists and a goal over his last 5 games. So dependent upon those offensive actions to get a really good set of points, but with 2 shots this week, one on the road to LA and then at home against Chicago. Not bad.
That's
Not
a good
bad.
one.
Yeah, not bad. I don't know if I'd make him top 5, but I could see maybe contending for that 5th spot or for a switcheroo spot going on right there.
I think one of the things with the SKC mids are, it seems like, Kenda hits whenever you take Tommy, and whenever you take Tommy, and vice versa. So you just never know which one to pick of those 2 guys. So that the consistency is a little low for me.
Yeah, that's why I've shied away from the past. I mean, of course, on the other side too, Brugman, just to give LA Galaxy their due. I know Chicharito's out, but Brugman has been a fallback that lots of people have looked at already. So especially since Ricky's not doing so great.
Yeah, Brugman's one of those good floor guys that I was talking about. That he could get you 6 or 7 pretty easily without any kind of goal contribution. And, you do that twice and you end up with a 14-point week, which is really solid. So that's not a bad choice.
This is where I see some more chalk in this round. Is probably going to have some chalky midfields. I think we'll have some chalky teams of defense with some variation of players. But now let's move on to forwards and see. I don't know. Is this a 2 or 3 forward round, Matt? Who are you looking at?
Oh, it's as few forwards as possible. We thought goalkeepers were bad. I'm not a huge fan of the forwards. I think the chalkiest guy you're going to get is Carranza. I think his last 2 double weeks have been incredible. And another discussion that we were having earlier today, actually, it was Black and Red again. He was talking about every time he strands Carranza on the bench after the first game, he hits in the second, and he's done that twice. He's done that the last 2 double weeks. He went from a 1 to a 10, and it's in week 13, and then in week 15, he had a 2 and a 15, and so quite boomer bust when it comes to that. But I love Philly's matchups. I think they're really good, at least from an attack perspective. And Carranza, I think especially with the form that he's had, I don't any team without Carranza is probably making a poor choice, in my opinion. I think another one that a lot of people love is they like Bouanga this week. It's one of those things where he's in Africa as of this weekend, and so will he get back and will he play? Based on his past and coming back from internationals and how quickly he's bounced back, it wouldn't surprise me if he did. But with LAFC's form and all that travel, how effective is he going to be? Now, he might be a good bench play and see how he does. He's got the 2 home games, solid matchup. He's obviously a great goal scorer, and so I think Bouanga is a solid pick. I'm trying to decide. I think lineups are probably going to affect a lot with that on whether I go with them. And then the third one I'm looking at is Polito. I think that's super chalky as well. He's just been hot. He's just been on fire. I'm picking him mainly for that second matchup where he's home to Chicago. I think Chicago's just shipping goals, and Polito's he's the penalty kick taker. He's the kind of the guy pulling the strings in that lineup, at least in my opinion. And he's starting to hit some form, which is really nice. So I think of those 3, there's a really good chance that I might scrub a forward spot. A lot of people do switcheroos and do 5 defense and scrub 2 of their defenders, but a lot of times especially on double weeks, defenders score really well, and so I'll scrub a defender and a forward. So that's just it just depends on your preference and who's available as to what you decide to go with. But I know a lot of people scrub forwards as well. So there's a good chance that I might just see who hits on the 2 forwards on the bench and then pick the best one, and just do essentially an auto-roo, but using a forward and a defender.
Yeah, that tends to be how I play as well with a scrub defender and a scrub forward, and then going from a bench there. As I usually play all of my mids to see. I don't know this week because I do feel like Acosta has to be on the bench. So interesting lineups. I'm right with you with like the top three: Carranza and Polito and Bouanga, but with the big question marks around Bouanga. I don't think you switch to Vela if that's what happens, because I would expect Bouanga would at least get one game, and that's going to eat into what he does. And if potentially LA could do well against Vancouver, I don't know. Against question marks about LA that I'm just not sure. But the big problem is a lot of the other forwards are either not available or have a single game. I mean, Benteke, one game at home against DC. Cucho, one game at home against Nashville. Not bad games, especially since that's Cincinnati's second game. Could have a couple of key players missing because of yellow card accumulations, in addition to players missing for some call-ups. Could be good options, but is it going to be enough? I mean, this could be where we see a single game week guy edge into the points that a double game week guy plays. If Cucho has a massive game, if Benteke has a massive game, will it happen? I don't know. The Bobasi, another double game week guy, hit or miss. He's gotten 2 goals in his last 4 games, and when he doesn't get the goal, he gets like 2 points. So what's going to happen there? On the road to Houston could be kind of tough. Like you mentioned, they have most of their starting solid players there, especially on defense, as available. And then they're going to be at home to St. Louis. I kind of like that matchup with some of what they have, but who's going to be there? Kay Cow is going to be gone. So what impact is that going to have on the team? And so it's just a lot of I don't know what's going to happen with some of these players.
I'll throw one out also on behalf of Blaine, since he's not here. Which I want to say, I am disappointed that the one time that I get to come on and neither one of them are there, and I don't get to chat with them. So I'm disappointed, but I will get over it. But I wanted to throw out Gyasi Zardes. He's not a sexy name to throw out there, but goal contributions in 5 of his last 6 games, 2 home matches. If you're short on funds, he's pretty cheap. So I will throw that out there. I won't be taking him more than likely, but he is an option, and he's been helping out the offense there. No, so if he plays, that's a pick.
I mean, that's a great shout out right there. I mean, also in spirit of Blaine, I mean, we could mention Bernardeschi. It seems like he does always mention someone from Toronto. They got an assist against Minnesota in the last double game week. Did play 85 of the 90 minutes during that last double game week as well. So on the road to Cincinnati, on the road to New England, both teams missing some defensive unit players. Maybe Bernardeschi has something in him this week, and he is $8 million. So another cheap player right there. And maybe again we mentioned RSL as someone who could be worthy of a bench spot going up against Minnesota and St. Louis. Those are some opportunities right there wherever they could shine. If you want to take again a bench for me 100%. If you're looking at that, I think those are those are 3 differential forwards. I could see you making an argument for how that. Bernardeschi would probably be the lowest of those 3 because they're missing other parts that make me question Toronto. But Zardes is definitely one, or someone from RSL could be an interesting differential that you take for a forward spot, depending on how you want to use that money. Checking chat real quick. Rudy, I don't know. That's an interesting pick right there. Carranza, absolutely. We'll see what Carranza only benefited as well if Goslock is back for Carranza.
Yeah, I mean, you could go Ura too if you wanted to go differential for Philly. He's super high variance for him, but he, I mean, I would go Carranza 10 times out of 10. But still, if you're looking at a price thing, maybe a budget thing, you could go with him as well.
All right, so let's move on to our final segment now, which maybe is more unfair than usual for me to be asking this question on a Monday before a double game week. But Matt, who are you looking at for your captain?
Yeah, yeah, there's not great ones. I think a solid one. Yeah, if Lucha wasn't on yellow card watch,
Absolutely.
he'd be my number one. I think Hector Herrera is a good shout. I mean, if he's even with his floor, I mean, you're looking at, I mean, you could end up with, 24, 25 points just from a floor matchup. So he's a super solid shout. If you want to go risky, you could go Driussi or somebody like that. Honestly, I considered Kai Wagner. His last two double game weeks, he's got 19 and 23 points for his double game weeks. Now I know we don't have Blake, for this one, but he's on set pieces. These are great matchups for attacking points, and then that's his forte. That's his wheelhouse. And so, I mean, I couldn't blame somebody for going with Wagner. A little more risky, you could go Carranza. I could see that happening. I don't know that I would. I'm a little too conservative probably to do that, but I really wanted to last double game week. I wanted to that he had. I wanted to go with Carranza. I didn't. But I could see somebody who wants to really make up some ground. The captain this week is one place that you could really do it. And if you pick somebody who's going to go off like that, you could make up some serious ground. But so Herrera is probably where I'll land, barring any kind of lineup zaniness how that happens Wednesday night. Herrera's probably where.
Me, I'm going with Mukhtar as the choice. There may have been some weirdness with the connection just a second ago, so I apologize. But for me, I have it on Mukhtar right now. I totally get that Herrera pick for that floor because, I mean, I could definitely see, Houston, San Jose could be a 0-0 game, and Austin, Houston could be a 0-0 game, or really go in Houston. Like, those are some like games that I really don't know how to feel those out. But for me, it's on Mukhtar right now. I like his shot against Montreal going on this form that he's had. And even though he's still on the road, I'm interested to see how he does against Columbus with them missing some pieces. That is some question marks. I know we have talked often about how Nashville is not a road team. And so that does have me worried that may be more superstition than the firm logic. But I could see how this would be a defensive week as well to go with a solid player right there. But there's just those missing pieces make it really worrying. So I may just end up falling back on one of my go-to tried and true midfielders right there with Mukhtar. Checking chat real quick. Yeah, some similar names right there besides the joke names that get thrown out. But yeah, Mukhtar out there. Some people looking at defenders as well.
Breck Shea on there.
Always. We always have a Breck Shea call out right there. Driussi's an interesting one. I think that is definitely a differential one. But I don't have a feel for who's going to be the top three this week. But be sure to head over to MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord to get to the Discord community and vote in the Discord player poll where we take community feedback from where you think. Doesn't have to be your final team, just players you like. Doesn't have to end up being within budget, just the players you like. And we post that so that you can see just how we stack up against the stuff that Skylar puts out for MLS Official for team ranking. So it's just fun. All right, but let's wrap everything up this week. Great conversation, I think. Thank you so much, chat, for participating. Let's wrap it up with our plugs. Who do you want to shout out, Matt?
I want to shout out at Soccer Down Here, which is a local Atlanta soccer community. They put out content like they have. They broadcast on Twitch. They have a podcast, and so it's just some of the guys, the local media guys down here or in Atlanta for Soccer Down Here. I've also been doing a weekly pick for them, just a small bit of content. So just wanted to shout them out. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've had some people from Soccer Down Here involved in the show in the past. So, yeah, no, a fantastic project.
Patrick and Ryan,
Yeah, fantastic stuff going on down there. Of course, I'm going to give the usual shout-outs, MLSFantasyBoss.com, for the articles that we have coming out. Again, I know this round of double game weeks has been rough with content, but we appreciate everyone who is still checking out and participating in the feedback opportunities that we have, and of course the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord. Cannot mention it enough throughout the entire show. It is just a fantastic place to go and get feedback for your picks, thoughts, just general community as well for just anything you want to talk about. I know there's lots of things to talk about right now in MLS Messy. If you check the front page, really diverse right now offering of news that you're going to see. But it's head out to the Discord for all sorts of talk, especially during game weeks. You get lineup notifications. We have the fantasy tools, and then other little side fantasy games, of course, with different tournaments going on. They have their own fantasy games that we don't talk about here, but we do have little communities, sub-communities for right there for you to check out. So again, all of that, MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. But yeah, just be sure to get your team set by Wednesday. Those lineups will be locking at 7:30, so just do everything that you can. But for now, as always, good luck.